Time now for All Things Gators, All Things Orange and Blue. Dan Hicken and Frank Frangi. What's up, Hick?
Doing great, Frank. Thank you to Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, sc-ortho.com for all your orthopedic needs as we talk some Gator. All kinds of sports going on. You choose. What would you like to begin with? The massive NIT showdown. I was on Pins and Needles Sunday night at 10 o'clock, wondering, hoping, praying that we would still be playing basketball.
I appreciate you reaching out on Twitter and saying, hey, the selection show on the U.
Want everybody to know.
Yeah, I know you did. You're always about the other guys. What I like about you. That's what
I'm here for. Yeah,
and that is. So thank you for the heads up on that. Let's start with hoops because I think it's interesting. All right, so we're recording this on Tuesday. The game's on Wednesday night. So, but apart from how they do or don't do in the NIT, all right. So there's 16 and 16, 9 and 9 in a league that sent 8 teams to the NCAA tournament, which means they're the 9th best team at best in the league. Look, here's my thought. Todd Golden just got to this part of the country. It's a new thing for him. He barely missed on some portal guys. But look, if they lose the game to UCF, and again, when we're recording this, they haven't played yet.
Yep.
They will be under 500.
Yep.
For only the second time in about 30 years. Yep. Now it's a first-year coach, and I get that. Mm-hmm. But what pressure? I say pressure is not the right word because I hope we don't fire a coach every 2 or 3 years like other schools. But I do think the expectations have to be that's got to get better kind of fast. I think he's a good X's and O's coach. I think he's by all accounts a good guy. The question is, can they go get some players? Dan, look, they're going to break. Hopefully, Kugel comes back. That's the biggie.
Yeah,
he's made it clear he's not going to the portal, so you could lose him to the G League, I guess. But hopefully, it won't. But if Kugel, Richard, Fudge are back, maybe Reeves, that's your foundation, right? And a lot of other new guys will join those guys. Is that how you see it?
It is, and I don't know that that's a good enough foundation for this team to be successful. I noticed something interesting again, and I think it was in the Gainesville Sun, Gator Sports. Did you happen to catch the amount of money spent on basketball? Florida was like 13th or 11th overall in spending in revenue, how much they spend on college hoops in the Southeastern Conference. Obviously, Kentucky far and away number one, like over $20 million. And I think Tennessee was number 2 at 15. And then there are a lot of interchangeables down there at the bottom. But, look, I don't know, man. It's trending the way that I had feared. And that's what bothers me the most. And again, we've pointed out over and over again what Billy Donovan was able to do. So there are a lot of challenges for Florida basketball and finding the right guys. And Todd Golden, in the end with that talent, 16 and 16 is not, okay. But I mean, if that's what we're striving to be is okay, which is kind of where I think we fit, then it is what it is. But I know Gator fans want a whole lot more in hoops.
Well, it starts with next year. Yeah, I mean, basketball is not a build for the future. Your good players last a year. Basketball is what can you bring in? I think they've got to go to the portal and get a point guard again and a couple bigs. And so you've got to go. I mean, Shimmy will be okay as a backup big. I know they got the kid coming in from Australia and Thomas Hall, the kid from Pennsylvania. But they look to me like projects or role players.
Right.
There's not a star. I've heard there's a few point guards they have their eye on in the portal.
I'm sure, that
they've got to land one of those guys. But look, it's a tough league, man. 8 teams are in the tournament. And so I think it's important to me that they get back to 19 or 20 wins, get to 5th or 6th best in the league, and get in the tournament. I think that's a fair expectation for next year. I'm not asking them to be the 1st or 2nd team in the league.
Right.
But do you think 19 or 20 wins? 10 wins in the conference, 5th or 6th best team in the league, and make the tournament by next year. Is that an unfair expectation?
No, I think that's more than fair. And I think that's, again, I tend to argue that's probably more the ceiling unless you find a special coach or you have a special year. Right. But the challenge is to be consistently at 19, 20, 21 wins and consistently make the tournament and be one of the top 64 teams. I'll say this, Frank, there's no reason why Florida can't be one of the top 64 teams in the country.
I agree.
We're not asking for a Final Four like we are in football. Right. We're not necessarily asking for SEC championships. We celebrate those even more so when they come. But one of the top 64 is more than fair, and that's the challenge for Todd Golden. It'll be fun to see if he's able to get him there. Because if he goes sub 500 next year, then the questions will come up.
Before Billy Donovan ever went on his run, Jeremy Foley told me years ago, our goal should be kind of what you just said, Dan. Our goal should be to be in the tournament every year, and then every handful of years have a special group.
Yeah.
And that's what Billy Donovan exceeded that.
Sure,
he was in the tournament every year, and more than every handful of years had a special group.
Correct.
But to be in the tournament every year, that should be the floor. And then every third, fourth, fifth year, have a team that can make a run. That doesn't mean you're going to win national titles, but you want to have one of those teams. You got to get to where you have some. You're not going to be like Alabama is this year very often. That's how Billy had. That's the 04s and 6 and 7. But you can be like Tennessee is, whereas you're a top 4 or 5 seed in a bracket, and teams expect you to get to the 16.
Yeah,
you should be in the tournament every year and in the 16 every third or fourth year. And so again, I think I hate to use pressure because that means hot seat and a guy makes it fine. I don't want to see that, but I think that should be the expectation for next year. Let's get this thing back to 19 or 20 wins. Frankly, as much as people hate to say it, let's get it back to where Mike White had it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, Mike White, the knock on Mike is that people didn't think he could get beyond that point.
Correct.
But right now, let's get it back to where Mike White had it
and go from there
in the tournament every year and kind of winning a tournament game every year. Yeah. I think that's the expectation for next year. I think they got to get there, Dan. I think, and again, there's not a lot right now to work with. There's Kugel, who might be really good.
Right.
There's Richard, who's pretty good. There's Fudge, who's athletic.
Yeah.
I don't know if Wasey Reeves is going to be on the team next year. He does marvelous stuff and then bad stuff, you know.
Right.
So I think it's a 3-man core. It's Kugel, Richard, and Fudge, and then you build around that, which means you got a lot of building to do.
All right, let's turn our attention to the hardball, Frankie, and talk some Gator baseball. I've seen enough. And this is dangerous. It's burned us the last couple years, but this team is back. And when I say they're back, I'm telling you that they're back more than capable of getting to Omaha. More than capable.
Yeah, for a couple. Number one, hopefully Wyatt Langford's okay. You know, he had a tough injury.
Right.
Fouled a ball off a private area, and then hopefully I don't know the extent of the injury, but he's going to be out for a few weeks, they said.
Sure.
But hopefully he comes back. He's a great player. He's a first-round draft pick. He's a top 5 draft pick. But hopefully Wyatt comes back and is okay. He's a great player. Jack Caglione's a great player. I'll say this. When everybody's healthy, 2 through 6, their lineup.
Yeah.
Langford 2nd, Caglione 3rd, Rivera 4th, Riopelle 5th, Evans 6th. That 2 through 6, that's as good a 2 through 6 in a college lineup as I have seen ever.
Yeah.
And I'll go ever, and that includes Florida's national title team and some of those really good teams. I thought the 98 team that lost, that was the number 1 seed in Omaha and lost 14-13 and 12-10 to Mississippi State and Southern Cal, scored 23 ones and went 2 in barbecue. I thought that's the best offensive team I'd ever seen. This one's better, Dan.
Yeah.
This team, I mean, Caglione's got 13 home runs.
Yeah, I know.
We just got it's the middle of March and he's got 13 home runs.
By the way, Frank, the ball. I mean,
no question.
We're juiced up a little bit here. We're back. I mean, it's not the bats. I think it's the ball.
Whether it's the ball, the bat, or the bodies, something's juiced because balls are flying out of the park.
We're not just saying Florida. I mean, this is a trend in college baseball. It's unbelievable.
No
what's
question.
Going on?
But back to your point.
But one other thing, Frank, like Josh Rivera, you know, the year that he's put together, and God bless him, he's made some swing changes and blah, 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 but he's hitting ball 450 feet. It's a shortstop. What was happening here? Yeah,
I looked up and Tyler Shelnut hit one 430 with an exit velo of 112.
Yeah.
And he's the guy a week earlier. I wasn't sure I knew who he was. Okay.
Correct.
So, but I'll say this. They have a really good team. Colby Halter, a kid from Jacksonville where you and I both live.
Yeah.
Colby Halter's a guy that a year ago was a leadoff batter before I was in the middle of the order. He's now fighting to stay in the lineup.
Yeah.
And Colby's still a good player.
Yes, he is.
But it's just that's how many good players they have around him. The Curlin kid's a really good player. He's been leading off some. Robertson. They can really hit.
Yes.
So given that, now look, the SEC's brutal. I thought about Florida's ranked 6th in the country.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, is 4th in the SEC. Just so you know, or 4th. I mean, the first 3 or 4 teams in the poll are from the SEC. So
yes,
it's a loaded league, man.
And kudos. This I'll give kudos because I'm critical as well. But kudos to the administration and everybody for staying in front of the baseball narrative. In other words, the facilities and the recruiting. Listen, Florida's baseball stadium is second to none, and that's what it is everywhere in the Southeastern Conference, man. And the fan base has responded as well. There've been great crowds over there at the ballpark. So a lot of good stuff happening there with Florida baseball. Yeah. You just got to figure out the bullpen for me, Frankie, and we'll be all right.
I finally made it to the park. I had not seen it. It looks great on television.
Yeah.
But television doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, it's terrific.
You have to go to that park to see how magnificent all the detail of it.
Yeah.
There's not many minor league parks as good as that.
Right.
It is a spectacular park. And I mean, it really is wonderful. And so you're right. Scott Strickland did a great job. Sully is going to be just fine. So so even with the SEC as good as it is, you're probably going to be in Selection Sunday, way down the road in May. You're probably going to be one of the 8.
Yeah.
And if you're one of the 8, that means you play at home until Omaha.
Right.
So that means you should get to Omaha. I can't see anybody. They're 16-3 as we speak here, or 15-3 with the game tonight against North Florida.
Mm-hmm.
But they're probably I think they're headed to 16-3 when Alabama comes in on Thursday. And it's hard for me to think they can't get to the top 8. The top 8's the number.
Right.
Because that's the team that gets the regional and the super regional.
Right.
And the Omaha. But they're fun to watch. They bang it. And
they
also,
are.
one other thing, this Caglione guy's going to be fun to watch him.
Oh.
I mean, how many is he going to hit? Well, Langford set the school record with 26 last year.
Yeah, he's halfway.
He's halfway there, and we're in the middle of March, and we haven't started SEC play yet.
Yeah.
So it's just pretty amazing stuff. So good for them. Baseball's off to a good start. Softball too, by the way, very good. The beat reporter Lauren Brooks on our program tells me gymnastics might be as well positioned to get that natty, the next natty.
Oh,
anyway, I know you.
We need this. I'm jonesing for a natty right now. I need a T-shirt. You know, I want a T-shirt.
I know you
want to order the T-shirt. It's going to be tough. It's going to come down to 2 or 3 schools, but Florida will be in the mix for that, and hopefully Lauren is on top of that and taking care of that for us.
I know she will. Let's get to football. Any thoughts on what you've seen from spring practice so far?
I haven't seen a ton yet. I know you're cautiously. I kind of like to phrase you as a cautiously optimistic guy.
That's right. That's accurate.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
I have not got there yet. I just keep in my mind, I think about the schedule. I think about where we're at. I think about the things that I hear in terms of this year is sort of, I don't want to call it a bridge year because it's a second year, but I know the patience of Gator Nation is going to wear thin if we're 6-6-ish again.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
I don't know how good the team will be this year.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what to think. You don't know what you're getting from the offense of the quarterback. And I think if we're being honest, I want Graham Mertz to be really good if he's the guy. But there's no way to know what you're getting from him. I don't think he's this abomination that some people think. I think he might be pretty good, but I don't know yet. What I do think is, from everything you're hearing, that the lines of scrimmage are better. They had a lousy defensive line last year, and you have to have defensive line. The transfers from Louisville and Memphis are big physical guys that they really like.
We have size, that's for sure, on offense and defense. In the trenches, he has gone out and found size.
Yeah. And I think you have to be good on the defensive front, and you have to be good at linebacker in college football. And so, and the read I get following spring as best I can is that they will be better in those areas.
Okay.
I'm still not sure the receiving core is very good after Pearsall. I don't know what you're going to get from the quarterback. But I think there's some areas where they will be better. I thought the secondary the corners were better than given credit for last year. The safeties didn't run well, but I think there's some athleticism on defense better than they've had in a while. So that will keep them in some games. So Dan, I don't think they're 6-6 again next year, but I'd be surprised if it's much better than 8-4.
Right.
9-3 would be a wonderfully pleasant year given their schedule. I mean, Utah and FSU are 2 of the non-conference teams. Are both really good. Might both be top 10 teams.
Yeah.
And Utah's on the road to start the season with your first game with a new quarterback. So I get it. That's going to be hard, but I think it's getting built. You got to build the line of scrimmage. You got to have that defensive speed that the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world and the Ohio States of the world have found. And I get the sense he's going to find that. I just, my gut tells me I have a confidence level that he's going to find that. Look, everybody, if you follow recruiting, everybody's considering Florida. That doesn't mean you're getting them all.
Right.
But if you have enough considering you like we saw this past year, you're going to get some of them.
Correct.
And I think the overall roster depth, the speed of the team, the size of the team, the physicality of the team, that will grow under Billy Napier. I think that's the thesis statement for me, Dan, is I think the overall size, athleticism, strength because those are the guys that make the league, by the way.
Right.
I think that will grow under Billy Napier. Whether it manifests itself this year or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It looks like, I don't know, 7 guys could get drafted off of this team, 2 in the first round with Torrance and Anthony. So, yeah, we'll see. There's a lot of excitement around there. And Billy Napier, like you said, he pushes all the right buttons. We just got to see it on the field. And how long will we be willing to wait?
I will say this: I'm looking forward to the spring game.
Yeah,
you know, it's a Thursday nighter.
Yeah,
and because I think what you watch from spring games is, does the team run better? You can't tell if you're good or not because you're playing yourself.
Sure,
but you can tell if it looks different than it's looked in recent years. Does it look like you have more guys that look the part, more guys that run? Again, I think with this specific recruiting class, Kelby Collins and Cersei and some of the defensive guys, they're going to run better than the defensive guys they've had in recent years. I think you get enough of those. You got to get enough of those guys.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. By the way, before we wrap, so what's your take on the latest on Anthony Richardson since the combine? What he did at the combine, where he's headed? What do you think? What do you think about what Anthony Richardson's going to be?
I think. Well, I'll tell you this. It's a tough, but it's all come to fruition. Everything that all of us have felt like was going to happen has happened, right?
Right.
When we said he was done playing, when he announced he was going pro, we knew he was going to be a first-round pick, okay? And then we said, watch what happens because they'll do nothing negatively to impact him. Everything he does from here forward will move him up. You have to trust. You have to go back and trust the game film. Anthony like Dan Orlovsky showed a great Anthony Richardson play on social media yesterday. It was one play, and it was great. And the kid has huge upside. If you're willing to take the gamble, take the gamble. He might be Josh Allen, and he might not be. I don't know what to tell folks. I mean, the question you always go back to here is, if you had an NFL team, Frank Frangie, would you take him over Young and or Stroud?
Yeah. And my answer is no.
Yeah.
I would not.
Yeah.
I would take CJ Stroud first. I told you I got to work the Ohio State Maryland game this year. The Jags had an off week, and I think Stroud's really good. I think if Young holds up, he's a little guy, he's really good. That doesn't mean I don't think AR is going to be good.
Yeah.
But I do think right now, as we sit here right now, that's the risk. And look, we all know the storylines have been written.
Sure.
It's the people that like him say he's a great kid, works hard, all the traits, and will continue to develop. The people that don't say, listen, I'm rooting for him, but you don't just go from a 53% passer to a 68% passer against better teams. So but I will say this. I think after watching this, so the Panthers traded up to 1, right?
Yeah.
The belief is they either want Stroud or AR. That's what people think. I think the best scenario, I think the worst thing that could happen to Anthony is first overall to the Panthers.
Because then he's got to play.
And I think Frank Reich's really good. He's a good coach, really good coach. I would almost rather see, if I'm rooting for him, Stroud to the Panthers, Bryce Young to the Texans, the Colts go up and get Levis, and I'd like to see AR land in Seattle under Pete Carroll. Sit behind Geno Smith for a few years. I almost think that's the best scenario.
I'd like to see him land in Vegas. Same type of scenario. Jimmy G's over there now, and you know, again. But remember this, Frank, and you know this as well as anybody, as the voice of the Jags. You get drafted in the top 10, the clamoring starts right away.
That's right.
There's not
That's
a
right.
few years. I mean, I know, Jordan Love was down there in the 20s. Aaron Rodgers was down there. I mean, you get drafted in the top 10.
You're right.
The boys want you to play immediately. So if you can squeeze out a year like Mahomes, then that's the best you're going to get, my friend.
And AR's like the guy. He's like the pitcher that throws 100. And it's got breaking stuff, but then he'll walk 3 guys in a row.
Yeah.
And if you can get away from the walking the guys, he's going to the Hall of Fame. Well, that's what AR is. Yeah. AR is a guy that rifle arm, great athlete, runs 100 miles an hour, works hard, but then he'll miss 4 straight open receivers. And in that league, you can't do that. So if you get rid of the missing the 4 straight open receivers, then that's the guess. Everyone's guessing on where that lands with him. And we'll just have to see.
Gonna be fun to watch for sure. And I know we're all rooting for him. So we'll see how he does. Gainesville kid. So definitely on his side. Good stuff today, Frankie.
All things Gators, all things orange and blue. Dan Hickett and Frank Frangian.
And thank you, Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, se-ortho.com for all your orthopedic needs in Jacksonville, FLA. Frank, you have yourself a wonderful week.
You too, Hick.
See you, buddy.